Hello guys, it's John. So we're here doing another Bottleman video. This time I'm going to be asking the question, was Bottleman God Cap good? Well, that was going to be the title, but I'm just going to answer that now. Bottleman God Cap was not good. So why am I doing it like this, and whatnot? And also first up, yeah, Bottleman is likely done, just for anyone who doesn't know. Bottleman should be done, so if God Cap continues, I will look like a massive clown, but I'm going to take that risk anyway. But yeah, anyway. So why was this not good? Well, there's a lot of reasons why God Cap wasn't good, so that's going to be kind of the idea of this video. Rather than like with the prototype line video or the DX video, where I went through the whole, everything about each line, and then gave the verdict at the end, this time I'm just going to say it from the start, and then as we go on, I'll say why certain things weren't good. I feel like it makes more sense for this one, because I think God Cap really just missed the mark in a lot of ways. I think it just makes more sense to go about it this way. So, that said, I'll just get into the first main part of this video. So first up we have the Bottlemen themselves. Yes, all of the mainline Bottlemen. So first up here we have Dragurt G. This is a pretty interesting one. You do have, of course, the big cap. That's kind of the main idea. Without the big cap, it just kind of exists as a very basic power type and like nothing else to it. So, yeah, you can totally take this out and split it into like this weird grip piece thing. They just kind of sit on the back and it doesn't work very well, but anyway. This is why you're using it, is for the big cap, and also there is a weight inside the main cap. You can, of course, disassemble this into like 3 different pieces. So, regular cap, the cap weight to basically double the weight of the thing, and then also, again, to make it fit with this. You do that, there you go. So, it's a pretty interesting gimmick. It is a little bit stupid. I don't know how I feel about this attachment, but hey, it's a unique idea, and it does introduce us to God Cap, of course, giving us more dynamic caps. So that's pretty cool. Moving on to Samets G. So this thing has rollers on it. That's standard for speed types. Also, you do have a one-handed grip on the back of the core here. So you hold it with just one hand, shoot, reload, do whatever you want. Also, you have the two-way magazine here. Fits 3 caps. You could put it either way, so it could come out, right or left. I like holding my bottle mount with my left hand, so I could reload with my right hand. And you also have your own unique cap here with the light cap, which, yeah, it's like a ring, basically. So yeah, there you go. This one, I think it works as a pretty solid speed type. Nothing crazy, but it's fine. I don't know how I feel about the design of this thing, but it is what it is. Still a solid Bottleman. Moving on to Dekavitiger G, our kind of main control type, because yeah, there was really just, the power type, speed type, control type, so anyway. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah. This thing, pretty basic, nothing crazy to note except the front part of the core and the cap. Obviously, the front part of the core, it's a vertical shooter, obviously. And then, yeah, the cap is a vertical cap. It's basically the same on both sides to make it, work better one-shot vertically. Makes sense. It makes sense for a control gimmick. I guess also you could put tension on the whole parts with the head, which is almost like a power gimmick, but again, whatever. It works. It's a pretty solid vertical shooter that I think does a good job at differentiating itself from things like, Wonder Grape or Raid Brave DX. So, pretty solid. Moving on to Kokuryuoh G. Kokuryuoh G, of course, you do have the arms here, which are kind of just decent grips, plus you have the little mini shooter here that can attach on, the small cap shooter, if you will. You can also swap these arms off for power arms, which I actually did not grab, but that's fine. They're basically like the Colaoh Energy DX arms, where, yeah, they had tension onto the whole parts, although they're actually a bit weaker than those, so it's like, why bother? But anyway, yeah. So, aside from that, you also have kind of your own unique barrel, your own unique magazine. The barrel, looks like this. Kind of reminds me of like a short barrel, but with like a little bit of extra stuff here. You could also add this dragon head onto this if you want. The dragon head could also go onto here on the top of the magazine, so move that wherever you want. Magazine also has a 4 cap capacity, so there you go. Again, in this horn, I guess you could say is like a sight. The feet come out a decent bit here for like stability. I cannot talk. And then there's the caps. So the main caps here are actually just regular standard caps. However, with this thing here, which is why I like to have these arms on, is because this is where you get the unique god caps. Yeah, the small caps. They are very small compared to regular caps, as you can probably just tell. Like it's. I mean, we could just do this. Like, if I could grab it, there we go. Yeah, much smaller. So, Kokuryuoh G is a multi-type. It's a very cool Bottleman. I'm a big fan of it. It does feel kind of like a perfect type in a sense. So, very cool Bottleman for sure. And moving on to Colaoh G, another multi-type, and also kind of the last of the regular releases here. This thing can do whatever it wants. The feet are kind of just giant. These parts can flip out to kind of make it tilt downwards. The tail can hold extra caps, plus gives it a bunch of extra stability. I just knocked the hand off. Okay. You could just have extra stability, plus again extra caps from the tail. There we go. The legs themselves, they hold vertical caps, and yeah, they each shoot, one cap. Then we get up to the arms, which are just gigantic wings. You have a small cap shooter type of thing, the small cap inside of there. You can add a second one if you want into the other side, or, just switch it to this one to the other side, or, whatever. You could have one or two in there, or I guess none, but what's the point? Head is a pretty unique shape. I guess you could also argue the horn is like a sight if you really want to, but yeah. Aside from that, the core is kind of a weird core, because yeah, it is, well, a kind of a big cap core. You can see the big cap rings it comes with, but it also has a built-in magazine, so it has 3 big caps inside of there. It's a wild Bottleman. This thing is the craziest Bottleman we've ever gotten, without a doubt. And yeah, it's very cool. So you might be wondering, well, I just talked about how Bottleman was, Bottleman God Cap was not good, and then I go into the mainline Bottleman and I start saying, well, they're not, like they're all pretty good. So what am I trying to get at here? Well, here's the problem. Yes, these Bottlemen are pretty cool, but here's the thing, there's only 5 of them. There were only 5 mainline Bottlemen releases. I mean, looking back to, the prototype line, you had 14 mainline Bottlemen plus 2 fusions. In DX, you had 16 mainline Bottlemen plus 1 fusion. And here, there's no fusions, and then there's just the 5 mainline Bottlemen. Well, yes, you have something like Colaoh G, which is insane. It's just such a small line, like, what am I supposed to do here? Like I said, there's one of each of the main types, and you get the 2 multi-types. Like, again, what is there to talk about here? Like, it clearly just didn't have enough put into it, in my opinion, to really make it stand out further. So, while the Bottlemen themselves are good, there's just not a lot of them. Instead, they opted to go a bit of a different route for this season. So I think all it needs to really be said here is that Bottleman God Cap had 5 mainline releases and 7 remakes. Like, you could tell where their priorities were. So yeah, there were 7 remakes. Let's go over these. Do the 3 Super Beatmon ones first, then we'll go to the, 4 Battle Beatmon ones. So, first up here we of course have Bottle Phoenix G, another Bottle Phoenix. There you go. Looks like this. Yeah, it is what it is, right? So this is a good look at the power type arms I was talking about that Kokuryuoh G has. This is a recolor of them, but just a way to look at them. You also have the Kokuryuoh feet, a regular power core, and a unique headpiece actually, which is pretty cool. Aside from that, the cap is a metal cap, if I could get that out. So, I mean, it's one of the 2 caps that was a little bit different from pre-God Cap, so I guess they're throwing this in because it kind of makes sense for the line. As a Combat Phoenix remake, it makes sense, but like, it's actually weaker, like a little bit weaker than Bottle Phoenix Energy DX, so it's kind of funny. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like it needed to be a little bit better. So, it is what it is, but yeah, it is a remake that exists. Next up, Bottle Phoenix G. Okay, so Bottle Phoenix G. Alright, this thing's based on, well, Samets G, obviously. Although instead of a gem up here, there's a special new little piece for the head, so it's a little bit different. That's pretty cool. But yeah, aside from that, it is just Samets G, and also, yeah, I guess the caps are different. This is a speed cap, the other older cap that was different. Kind of a counterpart to the metal cap, I guess you could say. So there you go, Bottle Wyvern G. Again, as a remake, does it make some sense? For a Wild Wyvern remake, yeah. But we got a Wild Wyvern remake in DX with Bottle Wyvern DX. And now they re-remade Wild Wyvern, which also released only 4 months after the DX version. What happened? Like, could we have not gotten, like, a different Wyvern? Like, Valiant Wyvern or something? Or it's Spread Wyvern. I think it was Valiant Wyvern was the next one. I might be wrong on that, but still. Whichever was the second Wyvern. I wasn't into beat 'em on, so yeah, anyway. I believe it was Valiant Wyvern, but yeah. Whichever one that was, should have been that. Yeah, aside from that, this is like a fine enough remake. Next up, Bottle Sphinx G. Probably my favorite of the bunch. This is a Dekavitiger G recolor, except instead of like the ears, we have these horns up here. So that's pretty cool. It makes sense for a Sphinx remake, though. Also, I guess there is another difference, which is that this actually does have a sort of a drive strip inside, which is the only way to get a drive strip in God Cap, except for Colaoh G's legs. I guess those have them as well, but still. It's the closest, like, single Bottleman that there is to a drive strip core. But the cap's also unique, which is probably what makes it such a cool remake, is that, yeah, it does have a curve cap. So you can see that there's rubber on one side. It is meant to curve when you shoot it. Only downside is they kind of messed up on this thing. So the cap isn't really as big as it should be, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it is another cap. It is another unique God Cap, so it's pretty nice, I guess. So yeah, pretty alright. Now into the Battle Beat on remakes. First up here is Cobalt Bottle G, a remake of Cobalt Blade. This thing, what happened? This is not a Cobalt Blade remake. It just doesn't work. Of course, it's based on Dragurt G, except instead of a gem up here, you have a horn. More importantly, they could have had the Dragurt G big cap launcher. They could have used that in the kind of grip mode, put them back here, which would have made more sense, but they didn't. And those would have worked pretty okay for wings, and then they just said, nah, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, okay, sure. This is not a good remake at all. Speaking of, we have Cobalt Bottle Fire G, which, there it is. So yeah, Cobalt Bottle Fire G, this uses, well, Dragurt, yeah, the Dragurt head, Dragurt feet. Again, the horn is the same one from the original, so there it is. But this time you do actually get a different set of arms. Again, these are the power-type arms that we saw in Phoenix, and, well, Kokuryuoh. Also, you have a multi-set core. I guess that's pretty cool. A perfect core, you know, magazine port, barrel port, power-type hold parts. That's nice. As far as the cap itself goes, I actually forgot to mention this on the original. We have both of these guys. They do have weighted caps. So, yeah. So, weirdly enough, they actually skipped Cobalt Saber and just went to Cobalt Saber Fire. Sure. As a remake of Cobalt Saber Fire, I don't think this is very good, personally. Is it, like, better than Cobalt Bottle G? Yes, but I don't think this is a very good Bottleman regardless, I'm sorry. Now we get to probably my two favorite remakes. So first up we have Bottle Souryuoh G, which is this. Again, it is basically just a Kokuryuoh recolor, without any of the attachments except for the barrel. So I guess, I mean, that is what it is. As far as a cap goes, got a weighted cap. It looks very cool. It definitely works well as a Souryuoh remake, in my opinion. And also, yeah, just as a pretty cool Bottleman. I like the color scheme of this thing. I guess remaking Kokuryuoh is sensible enough, so pretty cool. This was kind of a pair of like the initial version in Bottleman, so you do, of course, also have Kokuryuoh G. So yeah, this is again a Kokuryuoh Recolor, except this time with a magazine instead of a barrel. So pretty cool. I do like this thing. And again, also the caps are different. This one has speed caps. So, yep. And you can, I guess, make bottled Chouryuoh G if you want to. It's the closest thing we have to a fusion, or basically you just swap the feet and then these wing parts of the arms off of Souryuoh and put the Kouryuoh versions on. So yeah, I mean, I guess also take the magazine off of this and put it onto this. So, pretty simple, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, so for these, I think they're pretty cool. And I think the remakes in general, they're not bad or anything. These remakes, well, except the Cobalts, those were not good. And I also think that, you know, Phoenix and Wyvern have their own issues, but, you know, whatever, I guess. These two are very cool, in my opinion. And then, you know, Sphinx is also pretty nice. But I think the main issue is that they just focused way too much on remakes. Like, what happened here? They even made, like, the Team Guts set in December, where they gave us all three the Super Beat'em remakes in a set, except they were, like, translucent versions, and it was like, why? Like, you could have had a cool God Cap set, but no, we have to get a Recolor remake set. That's what they have to give us for a kind of end-of-year set for Bottleman. Like, how do you mess up that badly? So yeah, the remakes themselves, yeah, they're fine. It's just that, man, they made way too many. I wouldn't even be mad if they made this money if we also had, like, you know, 9 or 10 actual mainline releases. Then it's like, yeah, whatever, sure. But we didn't have that. You know, it was very, very few releases, and then we got these. Just frustrating all around. There were actually more remakes than there were original Bottlemen. I wonder if that was supposed to be the case or not. I personally am of the opinion that there was some kind of shift in development, so they kind of just threw other original stuff away and replaced it with easier stuff, which remakes are generally easier because they don't require as many, you know, new parts. Like, for example, like, you know, this guy here, Souryuoh. Like, it's a full-on recolor. Kouryuoh actually does have its own unique horn up here, which is cool, I guess, instead of this one. But again, that's not really a big deal. It's a very, very small piece overall. But yeah, they could have done much better, but at the same time, the remakes aren't even the worst part of the main line. It actually somehow gets even worse. So you know what's worse than remakes? Making new motifs for Bottleman, and not giving these new motifs a single unique part. The first case of this was, of course, Spritening G. So with Spritening G, we had basically a multi-type core, you know, the Kokuryuoh type of core. They did actually give it the CC Land trigger pad, so that's like the craziest we really did here. But aside from that, it's the CC Land DX armor set, so that's, you know, reused. And you have a long barrel and an Aquasports magazine. It's not new. Nothing here is new. Even the cap, which doesn't want to come out. There we go. It's actually a laser cap. The laser caps were a thing that they made back in the prototype line, which are basically glow-in-the-dark caps. Kind of a, not really a speed cap or metal cap type of situation, because those are actually unique. This one's just kind of again, a glow effect. But I guess, again, that makes sense for God Cap regardless, so yeah, nothing here is new. It's all reused parts. So, what happened? Like, why would you opt to do that? So yeah, they made Spritening, which, again, Spritening G. They gave it its own unique, you know, cap motif, which you can kind of see there. And, you know, its own unique name. This isn't meant to just be a simple recolor of CC Land. Obviously not. So it was just a throw together of parts, a custom build, pretty much, turned official release. This makes absolutely no sense, and this wasn't a one-off thing, because the final Bottleman release, seemingly, was Welch Great G. This has the same exact situation. You have a Samets core, right? A Samets core, again, you do have the Arrow Sighter trigger pad, so it's a little bit different, but it's still not crazy. Like, these are clearly, like, separated parts here, so it's not that interesting. You have the Arrow Sighter armor set, you have the CC Land DX, you know, quick loader magazine, and you have speed caps. Again, nothing here is actually new. Nothing at all. So when you have these two things, you know, neither one brings anything new to the table. What happened? Again, unique motif. You can see both the caps here are different from anything else, and again, the builds are different than anything else. Again, my theory is kind of that maybe these were supposed to be actual new releases, but something happened in production, and then maybe they just, like, thought, okay, well, we have parts that exist that are close enough, and I guess we'll just rebuild them with, you know, pre-existing parts to give an idea what they were supposed to initially be. Maybe that was it, but again, we don't know for sure. So with that said, why would you make these? We could have had, you know, if these were actual unique Bottlemen, it would have been 7 and 7 compared to, you know, new Bottlemen releases and, you know, remakes, but no. It's 5 to 7 with these two oddballs. Again, they are just recolors. There's nothing unique about these. Why do these even exist? I genuinely couldn't tell you. So, this was bad. And again, it just shows the problems with God Cap. There were just not enough mainline releases. The fact that we got 7 remakes with only 5 mainline releases is already bad enough. And then you add on 2 basically just filler releases. And one of these is meant to be the end of the entire line, apparently, from what I could tell. Like, what happened? I don't know. This was a horrible idea, and it really starts to show the cracks with Bottleman God Cap, and they just completely failed to make anything genuinely new, it seems. Like, they could barely muster anything new. Even things like Dekavitiger, it's like, okay, vertical shooting, that's not a unique concept. You know, the cap, you know, a vertical cap, you know, if you're making unique caps, that's not a crazy idea, because again, we all knew that caps kind of would drift. So making a vertical cap that doesn't do that, that makes sense. You know, Samets is just kind of a throw together of good speed type ideas, right? Dragurt, okay, big cap, cool. You know, Kokuryuoh just has a, you know, collection of different ideas, and plus small caps, that's kind of cool. Colaoh G is like the main thing that is very unique here. But outside of that, it's like, okay, everything else is just kind of whatever, and then there's these two. And yeah, this is where I think we really start to run into some severe issues, to say the least. Okay, now let's talk about the actual system design. So, this is a little bit weird because historically, I've done the system design, and then I'll talk about like how it evolved from the system before it. But this one I'm combining into two. I'm combining both of these just into one segment because basically the God Cap system is like a DX2 system. Like the heads, the arms, the feet, the ports for attachments. They're just DX basically. The cores are where things are actually a bit different. So, basically, they opted to change up the cores. So before, DX cores would basically be one main piece, but with detachable triggers that you could screw on and off. God Cap cores now are in 2 separate pieces. Kind of see that there's a bit of a seam going from like here to here. So basically, the head attachment point, also I guess the feet attachment, but I mean, you kind of need, you know, both to make that. Anyway, that's not important anyway. So the main things, though, are that whether or not it has a barrel port and also the actual hold parts, that's determined by the front part of the core and the back part of the core. Basically determines the trigger pad, I guess, and then also the magazine port, like whether or not it has one. This makes assembly much worse, in my opinion, because basically now you have to line the trigger back up, like with the prototype line. Like I didn't like this, because you had to kind of line up the prototype, line up the trigger, you know, mess with the spring. With the DX ones, you just screwed it in. It was very easy to use. I feel like the assembly has become much worse because they opted to go back into this into the style. I don't like this style personally. The triggers are just much more annoying to deal with, and also the split core thing is cool on paper, but here's the thing. With how they did God Cap, why not just keep the DX style of cores, but add barrel ports and magazine ports on everything? Because let me ask, when would I ever in a million years want to use the back part of this core? Okay, the trigger pad doesn't matter that much, because this doesn't have a magazine port. I want a magazine port. Obviously I'm going to use something that has that. Why wouldn't I? And that's where the problems really begin. The barrel ports, whatever, I feel, but like the magazine port, why would I ever want to not use it? Basically, the question becomes, do I want to use, this type of, back with a, a magazine port, or do I want to use the Samets one with like this one-handed grip? This is what I'm deciding between. I could not care less about these that don't have it. That's really where the problem comes in with God Cap, is that yes, it's very similar to DX, but I feel like you took too many steps back instead of steps forward. I don't know. I don't think these cores were a good idea. Like, on paper, they sound cool. Maybe if they made, more releases, this would have worked better, but they didn't. And also, again, I just feel like adding the options on would have made it much easier to deal with, because at that point, it's like, okay, just focus on core gimmicks at that point and hold parts, It wouldn't matter to whether or not you need to, mix and match for barrels or magazines or whatever. It was stupid. This was not a good way to evolve the DX system, in my opinion. Nor was it even really that good of an idea to begin with. I just think that the DX style, adding on to that with, having the ports there and just kind of making cores themselves crazier, that makes much more sense. This really just doesn't. Also, the assembly is worse, which, come on, that's just kind of unfortunate. So yeah, I don't like this system compared to DX. I think it's a little bit worse, personally. Time to talk about game design. I put Cobalt Bottle G here just so there's something to look at while I talk. But yeah, game design. What game design? Again, like with DX, at best you would say there was like the God Cap entry set or whatever at the start of the line, but like outside of that, game design is just not existent. It's been, throughout Bottleman, it hasn't been very good. Yeah, like DX, God Cap has done nothing to really do anything with the game design at all. Actually, the reason why I chose Cobalt Bottle G in particular is because it's my least favorite thing to come out of God Cap, and the game design reflects that. It's just bad. It's really bad, because they just didn't do anything with it. Also, referencing Battle Beat'em here, since they did, more Battle Beat'em stuff, why didn't you bring back DHV? DHV would have been a great idea. People have been wanting that back forever. It was the most, like, head-to-head type of game. I think it had the most merit to any beat-em-on game, and for some reason they just didn't want to bring it back. Would have been great for Bottleman. They just said no, so... Again, I'm going to keep this pretty short. There's not much to say, but yeah, the game design was, again, just very, very lackluster, but again, yeah, this isn't really a God Cap issue, it's just a Bottleman issue, really, so, yeah. So when you look at God Cap as a whole, I think you can kind of see where a lot of the cracks started to show. Obviously, I've said since the prototype video, which I'm not going to go into this too much, but yeah, marbles are better than caps. You just have a lot more to do with them, and I think that might be part of why God Cap struggled, is because, again, you're just a lot more limited. So, there is that. But aside from that, though, I do think God Cap was not very good, because, again, they just struggled to really make anything new. The game design wasn't there, so it's not like you had anything cool to do with them once you got them. I mean, what was there really to do here? Like, 5 mainline releases for an entire year of products? Like, that's just really not good, I'm sorry. Yeah, you had the 7 remakes and the 2 other things, but, they're just, again, there's not a lot for me to say here. This is why I don't think Bottleman God Cap was very good. Because, again, it was just really lackluster all around. With the releases, the games, and, really even the system design I didn't really care for. So yeah, not good. However, there is one thing that I have left out of this video so far. And let's get into that, because that'll be a fun topic. Quality control. Okay. Quality control has been God Cap's biggest problem. Everything else I've said, while everything was true, there were problems. Somehow, I think all of those things combined are less of an issue than the quality control. First up, let me just say this. They went back to the Chinese factory which they used at the very beginning of Bottleman. They fixed this, and they did much better in DX. DX was great. But then they went back to the Chinese factory. I mean, we had the Vietnamese factory for a while, it was nice. But going back to the Chinese factory was a terrible mistake. Now, I don't know if it's the Chinese factory itself or what they do there, but the molds there are just worse. And the Bottlemen themselves, they just feel cheaper. I think one of the easiest ways to kind of show this is actually with the hold parts. First up, the hold parts, I just think they are worse. They feel kind of gritty in my opinion. It makes them shoot worse. Also, the caps here, the ridges are larger on them and more prominent, so when you shoot them, it just feels bad. It makes this disgusting sound. Listen to this. That sounds abysmal. I hate how that sounds. It doesn't feel good either. Like, the amount of tension that requires is just bad. And also, if you look at something else, like Phoenix here, you got the power type hold parts. You have this, these power type arms, which are meant to kind of be similar to the Colaoh Energy DX arms, which again, those added tension onto the hold parts like these do. You would imagine that with how crunchy that shot sounded, you would imagine there'd be a ton of tension and a ton of power, but like I said, it's weaker. This crunch isn't even adding any real tension. It adds resistance, but not in a meaningful way. Somehow they mess this up that badly. Even speed types were affected by this. Like, I even feel like something like Samets G, with the rollers, is still crunchy. As you could probably tell, well, or hear, it still makes that sound. It still has that extra resistance, which is even worse when trying to shoot a speed type. Between the caps and the hold parts, you can mix and match with DX stuff. So if you have a DX core with a God cap, it's not as bad. Same with, a God cap core with a DX cap. So there are ways to kind of mitigate this issue, but still, it's not perfect. But more importantly, this season was all about the caps. You're telling me the season all about the caps is the season you decide to make the cap molds horrible. How does that make any sense? It doesn't. So now you have caps that are just significantly worse to shoot than the regular caps from last season. Why do I even want to use these caps? Maybe the big cap can get away with it, or even like the vertical cap, potentially, because they're different enough, but like the light caps, why do I want to use those? Or any other regular caps, I don't want to use them. Also, there's a lot of specific issues we'll just get into. First up, Dragurt, these arms, you just tell, like, this arm does not want to stay on at all, and this is not just an issue with this one, it's an issue with this one as well. I feel like the plastic almost seems like melted inside of these a little bit, and again, it's a consistent issue. Let's see, what else do we got here? I guess, where'd it go? There it is. Sphinx, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but the curve caps are made too small. Sometimes when you shoot, it doesn't catch on the hold parts properly and just kind of falls out. These caps were not well made. Aside from that, there's also the fact that I always feel like I'm going to break Dekavitiger whenever I want to put tension on this thing. Like, it just sounds and feels horrible. I hate that. Kokuryuoh G, you can't even take these arms off because these arms are actually made slightly smaller. And the God Cap cores, the actual arm connection points on the cores, they're a little bit bigger. Like, the tabs themselves on those points are bigger, and I feel like Kokuryuoh's core is even worse with that. And when you add in that issue of them being bigger and also these arms being a bit smaller, these arms are near impossible to take off. The amount of breakages that there were was horrible. Mine has stress marks, which is why I'm not taking off to show anything, because again, I just don't want to mess with this at all. I don't want to mess with any of these cores, because again, I'm just worried that they're going to snap. The plastic itself just feels weaker as well. I mentioned back in DX when it first came out that I felt like the arm connection points were kind of not good because I thought that maybe they'd break. They really didn't for DX, but in God Cap with the worst quality plastic, also the core, like the tabs themselves being a little bit bigger, something like this with the arms being a bit smaller, there's more tension when you're trying to take stuff off, and the plastic can just snap easier. You can see why this is such an issue. Like every Bottleman, even if there isn't a specific issue with a specific Bottleman, the God Cap issues are just omnipresent throughout the entire season. The entire line is just plagued by problems. And here's the thing. Even without game modes, even without a lack, or even with a lack of proper new releases, you can still do stuff with Bottleman. Even with just a recolor, you could get it. Maybe you have a combo you want to use out of this certain remake or whatever. Even if it's just like a color preference, whatever. There could be something that maybe you want to make a Bottleman out of, and you could make up whatever game you want. There's things you could do like that. But what is the most important part of Bottleman when it comes to trying to use them in any way, whether it's an official game or if it's a made-up game? It's being able to actually fire these things. And when they suck to fire, you've lost. That's all there is to it. They were not well made at all, and they just cheaped out entirely, and yeah, they were not fun to use. DX Bottlemen feel so much better to shoot, to where I don't even want to shoot these things. And hell, with the issues of, the plastic quality, I don't want to shoot these things because I'm worried they're going to break as well. They messed up horribly here. Yeah, this was not a good line in the slightest. The quality control just destroys anything about this line that could have had any sort of merit. Colaoh G is like the only thing here that I'm even going to say is an okay Bottleman to try out. Everything else just has too many problems for me to even want to recommend. And while you can still get them and use them, I can't say, you can't do that, but you have to be so much more careful, and you're also going to have to temper your expectations so much. It's like, why did they have to do this? It wasn't, it didn't seem that hard to get this right. I mean, they already did with DX and they messed up. They already fixed this issue and they just brought the issue back. What was the point of that? So yeah, quality control absolutely decimates this line. It ruined it in my opinion. I think that this line would have been so much better. But instead, I think we just have a group of 14 shelf pieces. They look good on your shelves, and that's really about all. I guess with the lack of games, that they seem to just want to make these into shelf pieces anyway, so yeah. If you want these as shelf pieces, they work perfectly, I'll tell you that. They look cool, sitting there. It's nice. But if you want to use them, buy something from DX, I would say. These are not worth your time, in my opinion. So yeah. Quality control, again, absolutely just decimated this entire line. And there you have it. Bottleman God Cap, and why it was not good. I did not like this line, unfortunately. I really wish I did. I had a lot of fun in DX, but yeah, this line, they just had too many problems, consistently. There was not a single release where there were just zero problems. Colaoh G is the closest we got, but again, it's not like it's perfect. Again, it still has the worst plastic quality and stuff. It's just less bad than the other ones, but it is what it is. But yeah, so that's it for my overview of God Cap. Again, not good. This was definitely the worst line, even though I want to like it more than the prototype line, but I really just can't. Yeah, DX is the best line. So yeah, that concludes my whole mini-series about, kind of going over every line, unless we get a fourth line, which is very unlikely, but yeah. I do still have some God Cap stuff to talk about, so there will be more discussions and even some ranking videos to do, and then, aside from that, I will probably do a big Bottleman video, a kind of retrospective type of thing, which, I will try to make sure to differentiate compared to these, videos. So yeah, that's about it for this, video and just kind of these, series of videos, so hopefully it was, interesting, and yeah. That's it, so yeah, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.